The road to success is always under construction. I want you all out there to always remember it. We're heading down a street, we hit a crack in the road. We jump over one crack, we think we've got it made, we fall into another. All of a sudden, there's a detour as we're driving down the street, as we're trying to get to the path, our destination. The road is always under construction, and there's a way to navigate it. There's a way to do it. And today we're going to be talking about something called blind spots that can stand in the way of us navigating this journey successfully in this pursuit of a transformation of our lives, careers, and businesses, which is what this podcast is all about. A great topic around blind spots today, which is really your weaknesses and or your vulnerabilities that are standing in your way, hindering your progress in life, career, and business. Going to be a great one. Our upcoming doctor spouse event is really just, it's really less than 2 weeks away here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Going to be seeing so many of you out there. Cannot wait for this mastermind event. It's going to be an amazing one. And today's topic is an exercise that we're going to create a roundtable there for. And it's also a great one for all of you out there to listen to, your employees, your family, your friends, anybody wanting to get more out of their life, more out of their career and or business. This is going to be a great episode, as so many are. These weaknesses and vulnerabilities that we all have, some of them are staring at us right in the face, but we can't see them. There's a specific way to identify it, and there's also a specific way to not identify it. What I mean by that is if you have your blinders on, right, and you're unwilling to look at yourself in the mirror, whatever problem is you have out there, you're never going to identify these, no matter how obvious they are. Going to be talking about some cool professional baseball umpire stuff today. When I was still in the game, there's something called tunnel vision. And tunnel vision, I'm going to relate back to these blind spots today and how it can get in the way of you seeing things as a journey, right? If you have a problem, it's never about one thing, even though it may seem like it, right? And these are part of our weaknesses and vulnerabilities called these blind spots that are standing in the way of our success. We're going to dive deep into it today. It's going to be a great one. Also, guess what? May is around the corner. What does that mean? If you've been paying any attention whatsoever, the rebrand of the New Patient Group podcast and turning into the Brian Wright Show is happening in May. Remember, you don't have to do a thing. If you're already a subscriber, you don't have to click anything. It's just going to automatically update in whatever feed you're listening to. So just be prepared, all right? It's right around the corner, and we're excited for it. We have a lot of other cool announcements coming in the future. A lot of great things happening on our side. So looking forward to a great one today. And before we get started, let's fire up the music.
Welcome to the Brian Wright Show audio experience, a podcast dedicated to transforming lives, careers, and businesses. And now your host. He's a husband, father of two, an international business and life coach, the founder and CEO of New Patient Group and Wright Chat, and a consultant and global speaker for some of the finest companies in the world, such as Invisalign and many others. Now, here's your host, Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome inside the broadcast booth. Shout out to the attendees at Iconic. Boy, oh boy, did we have a good time. Party at my house Thursday night. Everybody was behaved. Didn't drink too much because you knew it was coming the following morning. Role plays and learning all kinds of new great things. You had to be ready for it. But everyone who sent their employees to Iconic, man, oh man, the feedback has been great. That was our third one, and they keep growing. They keep getting better. We had multiple attendees actually that weren't customers. So that was something that was new for us for these events. And one of the reasons we created them is one for our family members, but also people outside of the New Patient Group family. And it was fantastic. Got to know people better. I think as employees come and, when we go into your businesses out there, regardless of what we talk about, it's not comprehended as well is when you get your employees out of that environment and into the hospitality that this lodge has. I mean, it's a 5-star situation there for the most part. It is an excellent place. And with exception, and that exception, I'm actually going to talk about one of my blind spots today that I can talk to you about that actually happened during the event. And it's something that I have to stay very much on top of because it used to be a lot worse, but it's one of these things that keeps creeping back in every once in a while. I'm going to talk to you about it. And also some holes that lodge has, some blind spots that they have that they seem to refuse to accept. And I'm going to be talking about that too as it relates to my blind spot. But overall, an absolute fantastic event. The feedback has been fantastic. I mean, we had people come in, shout out Dr. Nyack out there, sending your team all the way in from Hawaii now for all 3 events. First of all, it means the world to us, but I know your team's getting a lot out of it. Shout out again, to all the attendees. It was absolutely awesome. It's a topic that is not talked about very much in this industry is after the contract is signed, right? That non-clinical journey that you take with a patient, the hospitality, the sales, all the stuff that your assistants have to be armed with. That's what we worked on, and baby, it was cool. A lot of great feedback, and I really means a lot for everybody that was there. The camaraderie was great. Participation was great. Round tables, exercises, role plays, everything was fantastic. I couldn't be happier with it. The content is just amazing, and I wish everybody got a chance to hear it. They're really missing out by not hearing it. But anyway, let's dive in today to the blind spots. And there is, like I said at the top, there's something called tunnel vision, which I'm going to get to here momentarily. But I want to start off by recently. And I think this is such a perfect example, no matter what business you are out there. This is the first time you've ever listened. Our niche is in orthodontics, dentistry, other healthcare professions, because they fall into the same situation as a restaurant, as a hotel, which are also our customers, a financial firm, a lawyer, etc. Meaning that as people type in for their services, there's 5 or 10 options within a very short drive of where they work or where they live. So therefore, in order for you to buy, if a practice wants you to buy Invisalign from them as an example, well, there's a lot of choices, which means they have to be experts in hospitality, in sales, in psychology, in verbiage and presentation, just like a hotel that wants to convince you to buy from them, a hotel that's on the journey to try to get a 5-star rating, a restaurant on the way to get a Michelin star rating. These are all the things we teach, regardless of the type profession it is. We just happen to find a niche. Many years ago, when I started this podcast, started the YouTube station, the Invisalign executives started watching it, word started spreading. Next thing you know, 13 years later, having a new patient group, we are, our niche is in that space. But no matter what type of business you have, this is one of the reasons we're rebranding into the Brian Wright Show, is that our niche will always be our niche. We're not even looking to go out. We're not even looking to change that. But the reality is that if you want to get the most out of your business, you must develop your people in their life and their career, right? That should be your obsession. Your obsession shouldn't be over your product or making more money, et cetera. And that's what we do on here. And it's a beautiful thing to hear. I want to give a shout out really fast. Dr. Schaefer, so you're listening, and I can tell that I'm talking to him while I'm talking to everybody out there. So you send one of your assistants, and I can tell you that privately, which one, came to me and said, look, in the beginning, I thought you were full of shit. Right? And I started following your life advice and your career advice, and I see it working. I do my best to follow the advice inside the business, inside the practice. I see it working, and now I'm totally on board. And when I hear that, it just means the world to me, more about the life and career stuff, because that is becoming more and more my obsession with what I coach and what I do for a living, is making sure people are developed at the highest levels in their lives and in their careers. And usually when that happens, I talked about this at Iconic, it doesn't mean always, but usually when that happens, that is one of the ingredients to recession-proof in your business, is teaching employees the life skills that so many very, very successful people out there have, but they don't. They weren't raised with them or chose to ignore it, whatever the background may be. But they can have success in their life and career. Somebody is there guiding them, changing their mindset, teaching them what successful people do and the decisions that go into that, and what you need to do to hold yourself accountable, and all the things that we talk on here to help you get the most out of your life and your career. The business takes care of itself. When you give employees the skill sets to interact with your customers in a unique way, so few people see value in it. And that is why it always has driven me nuts that, if you could take the 5-star Michelin star restaurants, the Michelin star restaurants, 5-star hotels, and you could go out and give every hotel and every restaurant their recipe, and 99% of them won't do it. They still think the problem is advertising. And we need the phones to ring more and more new patients and more tables filled and all this crap when they don't. And they don't. And I told that story specifically to lead into this here. And this will get us started with the blind spot chat today. So we had a marketing company reach out to us, and, kudos to them, because many times what I see is the obvious out here. Like, if you're ever going to spend a nickel to try to get your phones to ring more, it is asinine to me that the vast majority of businesses, as in like 99% of businesses out there, won't first make sure their people that are going to be answering those incoming calls can actually convert them, right, into new customers, new patients, whatever the heck you want to call them, right? You just go out and spend money on pay-per-click ads and then wonder why the hell price shoppers are calling you. Well, because the pay-per-click ads attract those people. It's your fault, right? Your advertising is driving that. Plenty of podcasts in the future about that topic. But when you get the phone to ring with advertising, you have to have your receptionist trained on sales, psychology, hospitality, et cetera. You have all out there called multiple businesses and had a crappy phone experience. Well, your business is like that too, right? Unless you're committing to training your people by experts in those things. And it blows me away that more marketing companies don't see this. Like, unfortunately, a lot of marketing companies, and there's podcasts in the future about this exact topic too, marketing companies, to a fault, think their job is to get your phones to ring. That is not their job. Their job is to get your phone to ring with the people that fit your business model, right? The Ritz-Carlton is not looking for people that want to pay Best Western prices. So if they got 1,000 calls from Best Western type consumers, that is a failed advertising campaign, right? Same thing for the Best Western. If the Best Western got 1,000 calls for people looking to spend more for experience, that's a failed marketing campaign. And that's not how these people look at it. I can't wait to do those podcasts. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about, because with us, we don't give a damn how many calls we get you, right? We care how many starts that we get you, right? And I would rather get you 10 calls and have 9 of them start than get you 1,000 calls and have 3 of them start, right? And unfortunately, a lot of you don't look at it that way. So this marketing company, kudos to them, because they're like, look, we have a customer. They're a large organization. I think they had 11 orthodontic practices. And again, this is so true for any type of business out there. I think about this all the time, how it all relates. It's all the same. You're all in the people first business, no matter what you're selling. And they tried to convince these orthodontists were like, look, it's not working. We're not getting the new patients we want. Like, the marketing's not doing its job. It's your fault. The marketing company kept going, look, we're looking at the data and we are doing our job. And please, get some mystery calls, to your practice or blah, blah. And the doctor's like, yeah, whatever, we don't want to do that work. And this is so often the case. It's unfortunate. It's just so often the case in this industry where it's like this and beyond. Like I said, we help plenty of other businesses too. It's the same thing. It's just in orthodontics, you can have these leaky holes and still survive. And in many cases, still make a lot of money. So it's really hard to get you to see these blind spots we're going to be talking about today. So marketing company goes, you know what? Screw it. We're going to go find a company that can do these mystery packages for us. And got on the call with a lady, and they hired us. And they paid us a good amount of money to do, I think it was 25 to 50 recorded mystery calls, a couple analysis, do a bunch of websites, lead form submissions, some direct emails to them, just to see what would happen. And just like this lady I talked to, I already know, for all of you out there, I already know what's going to happen. Like, if you call us and you say mystery call the front desk, I already know what they're going to say if I ask, how much do you charge for Invisalign? Do you do this type of thing, and tell me more about it? Do you take my insurance? Like, I could already tell you what they're going to say before they even say it. I mean, we do thousands of mystery calls, and they're all the exact same. The leaky holes exist in everybody's business out there, yet you choose not to see it. And if you do see it, you still complain about the investment it's going to take to fix it when you're losing way more than the investment is to fix it. And I have a podcast and I haven't done it and it's coming. And every month I'm like, I'm going to do it this month. I'm like, no, it just doesn't make sense yet. Nope, doesn't make sense yet. And it's the only time that you don't get to complain about your problems. And I look forward to it because this industry is the epitome of what that podcast is going to be about. You love to complain about them, but you won't invest to fix them. So you go all over the AO and all these events complaining about all these problems, price shoppers, employee headaches, conversion, turnover, can't find anybody good to work for me. List goes on and on and on. And we have the solutions to all of them, but you won't invest to fix it. You would rather complain to your buddies than actually spend the money to fix it. It drives me nuts. And you don't get to complain about your problems unless you pay the money to experts that are good to fix them. All right. And that's what that podcast is going to dive into. We get into the numbers from this group practice. And I'm going to take you from the end backwards, meaning after we added up all the lost opportunities, it was around $4,150,000 of lost revenue on how they missed new patient phone calls during regular business hours when they're fully staffed, which is the founding principle of my other company, Right Chat, right? No one leaves a voicemail anymore. Right? That's why we answer, log into your software, speak as your employee, and schedule them. Because if you don't, those patients are gone. They're going down the street to buy Invisalign or whatever the heck it is. This is the same if you're a hair cutter out there, a plumber, a lawyer. If you don't answer your damn phones, they're not going to call back. Right? All the advertising you've done has gone down the toilet. So they missed countless amounts of calls. They also mishandled countless amounts of calls. From, do you take my insurance? How much do you charge for? Right? All the scenarios. So there was a ton of mishandled calls that consumers are not going to schedule with your practice if handled that way anymore. The days are gone. People are calling 5 or more practices according to multiple reputable sources. Right? They're going in more than 3 practices now according to multiple reputable sources. You got to do things different. This practice wasn't doing anything different. Right? The email submissions that we would send out, we would not get a reply. And when we would get a reply, the stuff that we put in the email wasn't even acknowledged, right? It was just like, it was just ignored. Someone just hit the reply button and typed in the same response to every single one. The online inquiries, here's a free tip for all of you. If you get an online inquiry, this does not matter what business you are. If you are somebody that is trying to get people to buy your product over somebody else's, whether it be the same product, but they can buy it anywhere, right? Or a different product but similar, right? You have got to respond to your online inquiries, ideally in under 5 minutes, but for sure in under 10. All right. There is overwhelming data. This is something else my company Right Chat does for people, is respond to these online inquiries, because we know based on the data, if you respond in under 10 minutes, you have a very high likelihood of conversion. If every minute that it goes over 10, your conversion starts to drop significantly. And the reason is you aren't the only place they're submitting, right? It is the experience after they submit, just like everything else. The experience on the phones, when they come in, all the stuff we teach. If somebody submits an online inquiry, it is the experience that you now deliver versus the other 3, 4, 5 places they submitted an online inquiry. So people weren't responding. It would take them 2 days, a day, 3 days, sometimes no response at all. It was a total mess. And everybody, this added, like I said, over $4 million of lost revenue when we were done adding up the statistics, to a place that thinks their problem is marketing. And this is so many of your problems out there, is that you think marketing is going to solve your problems, and it's not. In many cases, it adds to your problems, right? If you're crap inside your doors and you keep getting more and more people calling you and coming inside your doors to see how crappy you are, then that is a blind spot that is absolutely crushing your progress. Many years ago, when we still lived in Houston, this was in Humble on the north side of Houston, I used to get and I love telling this story because, again, it's a blind spot that this particular practice refuses to see, because I had a conversation with the doctor I used to get a postcard from this dentist every single month for 10 years. All right. Now, for those of you out there that want to do postcard campaigns, to this doctor's credit, that's how you do them. You pick an area that has your ideal customer, patient, whatever you want to call them, and you hit them consistently every month forever. That's how you're successful with a postcard campaign. The reason is, not to get too off topic, but the reason is that you have to hit people when the timing is right. And if you just do it for 3 months or 6 months just to test the waters, you're not doing it right. So to this doctor's credit, he was doing it right. But I have found over the course of my career, whether it be working with restaurants, lawyers, doctors, anybody that own their business, the people that typically put the most into advertising see the least value in inside their door stuff. So I know that the more advertising you're doing, the more leaky holes you have, just from experience and just paying attention to the stats. So I started mystery calling this practice and got no answer. This is, again, during regular business hours, 9 o'clock in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, when they're fully staffed. Right? Started calling them and would not get an answer. Finally, because I do what I do, that's the only reason why I kept calling, right? If it was an actual patient, I'd have been gone long ago. Finally, I did get an answer, and the lady goes, "Hold, please." Boom. Right? Which you never put a new patient on hold under any circumstances ever. So you've got to stay on the phone long enough to identify new or existing. If it's new, you stay on the phone. Doesn't matter what's going on in front of you. Right? So she puts me on hold. Then a bunch of minutes go by. I'm on hold. Somebody else picks up the phone and they're like, "Hello?" I'm like, "Yeah, hi." They're like, "Well, can I help you?" "Well, yeah, I'm calling to make a new patient appointment." Right? Total disaster. So now, because of what I do for a living, I got to go inside and see how bad it is now, right? So I make the appointment. I same old stuff, right? Boring text message, like the pre-arrival strategies all suck. I go in, right? I'm standing in front of a lady for a good 2 minutes. I'll never forget this story because it so exemplifies everything that goes on in all of you in our niches space. There is blind spots all over the place that you all either refuse to see, can't see, want to deny because it makes you feel like, you're a weak leader or whatever it is, all over the place. So I'm standing in front of this lady. I finally say something to her, and she gives me the one finger, right? She's not even on the phone. She's just into something, busy work up there, right? So basically tells me to shove it and shut up. And the rest of the process sucked too, right? This is somebody that's dumping money into advertising, wondering why they can't get enough new customers, new patients. There's leaky holes all over the place. And this orthodontic practice, this group ortho practice that I'm talking about, same way. Leaky holes all over the place, over $4 million, right? And that doesn't even include what's going on inside their doors with lack of digital workflow, right? Like how people are being greeted, not doing a virtual consult, like the list goes to presenting money inaccurately. The list just goes on and on and on and on. And why more of you out there can't see it, it just drives me nuts. I mean, it's one of the things that motivates me to wake up every day and change as many of your mindsets out there, because a lot of you do see it. And you call for, like the other day we get called by, it was actually a referral from one of our longtime customers. We had a great talk, and he wanted phone training. He identified the phones were a disaster. We gave them the investment it would take to fix the phones and train repetitively and hold them accountable and all that stuff. And the guy's like, "Oh God, I can't pay this." Meanwhile, he lost more than that yesterday, right? Than what we're going to charge in a month. He lost more than that yesterday. He just can't put his finger on it. And these are the blind spots that happen to all of you out there, right? This orthodontic practice was a large group, so it's adding up to more than if you're a single practice or 2 locations. But yours certainly add up to millions upon millions of dollars over the course of time too. But you can't put your finger on it. And I think for many of all of you out there, the vast majority of your biggest blind spot is the fact that you can't put your finger on the areas that are really kicking your ass, right? And that is such a poor, just like this group, right? I use leadership team in air quotes for 2 reasons what I'm about to say. One, all of you know that I believe everybody in your organization has the ability to be a leader. janitor all the way to the top, everybody in between. So all of you know how I feel about that. So I say leadership team in air quotes because it's the ones for them, like the executives and things like that, right? The other one is that these people are not leaders, right? It took the marketing company to be innovative enough and have the leadership skills and the innovation and the mindset enough to be able to go, this business needs help and we want to prove it to them. Plus, it was selfish because they didn't, they're being called out and say they're not doing their job. So they wanted to prove that they're doing their job, which they are. And it's just unfortunate because these air quotes leadership team weren't even innovative enough to go, you know what? Let's just check. Let's see if we have our email structure down, our online inquiries, response time, and the verbiage and everything down. Let's make sure our receptionists are highly trained to offer a unique experience to the caller compared to what other receptionists are going to offer. Let's make sure our phones are being answered. So we're not running they're obviously running it. And usually like with Right Chat with the data, the higher missed call volume we answer for a practice, the more analog braces they do and the less they outsource. And this is, I could do, and I have them in the future, but I could do one podcast that lasts 48 hours on this topic, right? It's like doctor complains that the Invisalign lab bill is too expensive, focuses, and this is going to be here soon when I start talking about tunnel vision. We relate this back and do some exercises here before we close out today. I'll talk about this more. But you're so focused on, oh my God, my lab bill, right? That you can't focus, like I said, as the road to construction is always under, or the road to success is always under construction, is that you become so focused on one little issue that you forget that it's always a multitude of things that's the problem. It's never being caused by one thing. And this could be for anything. As this podcast comes out, when you're listening at the beginning of April, this week I'm going to be speaking for OrthoFi in Denver. And it's the same thing. It's like, oh no, OrthoFi is too expensive, or Right Chat's too expensive, or new patient groups too expensive, or my Invisalign bill's too expensive, or dental monitoring's too expensive. Right? It's this mentality of you sit there and say those things are too expensive, even though those are investments, not costs. And you sit there and say those things are too expensive because you can see the numbers on paper. Meanwhile, right, you're not doing Invisalign, you choose to do analog braces thinking it's cheaper. Meanwhile, it's causing you to miss 5 or 10 new patient calls a month, right? And hundreds of thousands of dollars a year via leaky holes just in your front desk. Forget inside your doors like I've talked about. Just at your front desk, just like this group practices. I know, based on the missed call data, what treatment modality you're choosing to use inside your office. The data is that overwhelming. And even though most people still, you could put the data in front of most people and they still have this finite mindset of they get their data out and they say, well, here's my data, here's what's coming in, here's what's going out, and therefore I'm going to make my decisions on it. And this is how you destroy your customer experience because you nickel and dime every single ounce of profit out of your business. Meanwhile, you screw your customers and your employee experience along the way. And this just drives me nuts. This is the blind spot that so many of you have. And turns out this practice, as a matter of fact, after talking to these marketing people, high analog braces, right? Don't outsource, right? They've got a huge team. And the funny thing is that the practices that have the biggest teams have the most missed new patient calls during regular business hours when fully staffed. And most people, again, they hear that, well, I'm not missing calls. That's somebody else. Every single one of you out there has called at least 5 places in your life interested in their service that didn't answer the phone, and you went somewhere else and bought from somebody else. Meanwhile, you still can't go, damn, that's happening to me too. Like it's this disconnect and this blind spot that is hindering your progress. Right? It is a major weakness from a mindset standpoint. Just absolutely drives me nuts. When we were at the Iconic this past weekend, I got sat down at lunchtime by the management team at the lodge. And Eric notified our COO of New Patient Group notified me that they wanted to talk to me during lunch. when all the attendees were eating, they wanted to have a conversation about some things that had happened earlier in the day before the event started. And right when he told me, I was like, oh boy, right? Because I probably got angrier than I should have, but I want all of you to know that I have a passion for all of you to get an experience from us, whether it be we come in and coach you, or we're doing digital marketing, or both, or you come to one of our events. I take great pride in knowing that you're going to get the finest experience along the way. And, this is the third iconic event that we've had at this lodge. And well, sure enough, the very first iconic event, we were in a room that had a lot of audio issues. It was staticky, you really couldn't use the microphones. It was not a good experience from a listening standpoint for the audience. And that bothers me because I teach experience for a living. If you summed everything I up and do in one day, in a short little sentence, and like we increase people's sales through experience. It's experience through sales. And that goes through employee experience, as well as your prospective customer experience, as well as after they sign with you experience. So the audio was a problem. So Iconic 2, for our treatment coordinators, the audio was fine. We were in a different room. Well, now we're back in the same room as we were in the very first Iconic, which was a full team, but they have a divider wall because it wasn't a full team. It was a dedicated employee. So wasn't as many people there. So we find out they know they have an audio issue in that room. And we do a sound check the day before, and everything sounded fine. We showed up for the event that kicked off on Friday, and the audio was not fine. It was staticky. The lapels weren't working. Couldn't get the handheld mic to work. They go, well, let's try another one. And the other one was working in the other half of the room, right? They put the divider up, so it wasn't working in our room. It was working in the other one. That one didn't sound good either. That didn't work. And we're getting closer and closer to the event starting, and there's nobody there to help. Like the IT person that seems to know what he's doing wasn't there. The lady that was there was extremely short and extremely rude. Like I started off, I was fine. We were having conversations, and I would get responses like, well, sir, this isn't the only event going on. Like, I can't just stay in here. Because I had asked her, like, are you going to be here? Like, how do you know when he's here? Can you communicate the problem? Because I'm going to be up on stage talking. Like, and she got shorter and shorter, more rude and more rude, to finally to the point where I left and went to the front desk, and I was irate. And that is my blind spot, is I can be so passionate towards something that, sometimes the way I react, right? And I teach all of you, like, I could have controlled my reaction better than I did. Right. That is one of my blind spots. And, then I rethink the situation. I'm like, all right, I should have done this instead of this. Like, I still could have got the point across without doing what I did. Well, I went to the front desk. I'm like, you guys have got to get this lady the hell out of here now. Give me a manager. We're about to start. Like, this is absolute bullshit. I want somebody to take care of this problem. Right. So the next thing I know, like, the management's coming to me going, hey, you can't be like that. Right. We've got to have a happy place here, happy employees, things like that, and at lunch, I was apologetic. I kind of, took it where I didn't want to fight it. But the whole time I'm also thinking to myself, this is why you suck. Like, your employees, the way they're talking to people, like, you're not prepared, like the audio issues, etc. You didn't even act like you care. Like, if the lady would have just simply said, sir, I'm so sorry for this. I'm going to go hunt down, find the right person. You guys have paid a lot of money. You deserve a great experience. We're going to get this taken care of. That'd have been fine. Right. But I got several rude comments, one after another. And I'm talking like 5 or 10 of them, one after another, till finally I blew up at the situation because I was mad the attendees weren't going to get a great experience. So we ended up going the whole event with no microphones, right? So we're speaking with no lapels, etc. It worked out. But there's a blind spot in two ways. How I reacted, I shouldn't have reacted that way, right? And there's no excuses for it. Shouldn't have reacted that way, but also a blind spot for a lodge that is supposed to be 5-star, right? And if you go in their steakhouse, the ambiance of it and everything is 5-star, but the way the service is carried out is not. The way the food is carried out, it's not. And then how these events are carried out is not. And that is a blind spot that I did kind of articulate it in the nicest of ways to the management team, and they totally blew it off, right? They took absolutely zero responsibility for what went on inside that room. And that's going to remain a blind spot for that organization because no matter what data, no matter what proof you put in front of them, they choose to ignore it. And so many of you out there, right, the way you react to some of these situations when I or somebody else, calls you out for these obvious glaring holes staring you right in the face is that you choose to ignore it. And rejecting feedback, especially from experts, is a major blind spot for a lot of you out there in your lives, careers, and business. A lot of you don't even look for feedback, right? Which is terrible in itself. But rejecting feedback, whether you ask for it and then reject it, or somebody like this marketing company hiring us and us giving the organization the feedback, right? I haven't yet seen what the response is going to be, right? I want to give them a couple weeks. But most likely for places is they're going to reject the feedback, because I've seen this so many times, is that the businesses that need the help the most won't seek it. This is why, like, our customers are filled with the biggest names in the industry, right? As well as other people that you don't know their name, but they're just as forward thinking, right? They just may not be on stage or whatever, right? Because they all think the way I'm talking on here. Experience crushes it. It's the best marketing you will ever do whatsoever. From an employee experience standpoint, prospective customer, existing customer, if your focus is there, you will kill everybody, crush everybody. Every business on the planet that's famous does it that way. Yet no matter what you do, 99% of people think, oh, we just need the phones to ring more, even though they are, and your people aren't answering it. They're not handling it right. Online inquiries aren't being responded to. Your digital workflow sucks. You're not presenting money properly. Pending treatment, there's leaky holes. OBS, there's leaky holes. There's leaky holes after the signed contract, right? I could go on and on and on for businesses of all industries, of all kinds, and the majority of them will not accept the feedback. And rejecting feedback, again, especially from experts, is a huge blind spot for so many of you out there in life, career, and business. Like, you have somebody that really wants to help and can give you good guidance on choices to make in your life, whether it be money or just decisions that come up in all of our lives. And there's so many people out there that are like, screw it, not listening, right? That need it tremendously. Meanwhile, the people that are successful are out seeking coaching left and right. It just doesn't make sense, but it just gives you such an opportunity to dominate, because 99% of people in any industry, in any aspect of life, career, and business just can't see it. They just can't see it. And that is a perfect example, even with the $4 million plus lost opportunity. Even though, this event, this lodge that we hosted Iconic on, we gave them the feedback, totally ignored it, right? And those are things that they will always have, those leaky holes. I see it in their restaurant, the lodge, et cetera, et cetera. And, whenever you get passionate about something and you're a person like me, you do really have to watch the response, because in my mind, I'm sitting here going, how can you talk to people like this? How can you run your business like this? But the people at the top, they're absent. They have no idea those things are going on. So again, you can't spit out data that says, well, at 2:00, Judy talking to Brian, right? Make-believe name Judy, talking to Brian, said this, and that hurt our brand awareness, later costing us sales. Like, none of you can spit that kind of information out. But yet, if you're not working on being a better leader, and you're not working on uniquely training your team, and all the things that we talk about on here, those holes exist everywhere in your business. You just don't know it. Blind spot. Blind spot, blind spot, blind spot. And a lot of times these blind spots will come out when times are at their worst. If you're somebody from a leadership standpoint, that panics, right? I said many times when the economy's still not great, but I think we're heading in the right direction, thank God. But it's been down for quite some time. I said many times, the worst thing you can do in a down economy is spend money on advertising. You can't force people that don't have money to do Google searches. You can't force people that don't have money to pick up the phone and call you. You can't force that. What you can do is invest that money internally, right, to make sure your conversion is as high as it possibly can be during the down economy. Make sure that you get as many referrals by teaching your team how to ask, when to ask, what's that process, right, as can be. Like those things you can control. And if you're focusing on things that you can't control, that is a huge blind spot for a lot of you out there as well. It's rejecting the feedback, focusing on the wrong things, right? Doubling down on the wrong things to try to prove a point. So many of you do that out there too. I've seen it time and time again where, you believe something isn't going to work and you go out and do it anyway just to prove it's not going to work. Right? I see it with remote monitoring. I see it with clear aligners. I see it in people's lives, their careers. I see it all the time. And there's just these blind spots that exist, and they usually creep up and they usually come out when times are at its worst. It's just like your leadership flaws are always going to come out when the business is doing crappy instead of really well. Like anybody can lead when things are going great. Right? It's when times are tough and the business is suffering from a revenue standpoint or whatever it may be, right? That's when great leaders shine. And so many of you out there, you don't shine when you're needed the most. And it's unfortunate. And that's what, with my blind spot, what I should have done is just taken a deep breath, said, hey, look, just what I teach, right? Use empathy, right? Like she may have been having a bad day, got in a fight with her boyfriend, having financial problems. What I should have done is taken a deep breath and I say, you know what? Let me just, inside my head, that is, let me go get Stephanie, explain this situation to Stephanie, let Stephanie handle it, our director of client experiences. Let her handle it. Or David Martin was there, who runs social media for us and all of our customers. Or go to Eric, my COO with New Patient Group, and say, hey, here's what's going on. You guys go handle this. Because it's not something as a CEO I should be handling anyway. Sometimes when I do, this is what happens. But, we all have them. And another one of mine out there is sometimes that I take out my frustrations on the people that love me the most. Like my wife, God bless her. I mean, this is podcasts I have in the future. I actually have some planned guests on about this in the future. But, many years ago or many seasons ago, I did one of my favorite podcasts we've ever done. And we still get tremendous feedback with people who are like, hey, this really helped my relationship, helped my business. But I did a podcast called Growing Your Business While Strengthening Your Marriage. And it talks about these little acts, these little drips of love, right? These consistent drips. They don't need to be a lot, but they just need to be consistent, every week. And when you focus on that in a relationship, it really makes it strong. And those things typically, they start to go away, right? All the little drips and acts of love that happen all the time when you were, newly married or newly dating, right? Those become annoyances a lot of times and you stop speaking each other's love language and all the stuff. And again, if you're just consistent with it, just like with your business, you just have to be consistent with things. Right? And if you are, it creates a tremendous, tremendous impact, a beautiful impact, if you will. And it's the same thing with what I'm talking about here is that, and I forget this sometimes, is that, the people that love you the most, sometimes we're the rudest to. Like we would never say something to a stranger that we would say to sometimes our best buddy or a friend, a colleague, in this case, my wife, and she's, she loves me to death. She's my biggest fan, and she's seen the ups and downs over the course of the years, and she gets frustrated at the things I get frustrated too. The things like, why can't you see this, everybody? The problems that are staring at you, there's easy solutions for them if you would just invest in them. And sometimes you can't see the problems like I'm talking about. The data doesn't show all the leaky holes, but, sometimes I'll take out my frustrations if things aren't going the way I want them to be, or I'm pissed off at something or whatever it is, instead of understanding she's my biggest fan and is just there to help. Sometimes, I get frustrated and grumpy and then say something I shouldn't. And, that's a blind spot that I have in our relationship. That's a life, blind spot. And, so it's just like a lot of you out there, if you're frustrated in a relationship, it can affect your career. It can affect your leadership skills. And I'm by no means, I'm very thankful for the relationship I had. She's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. So there's not frustrations there. I'm just talking about, if there is for you out there, you've got to really understand how that blind spot, if you can correct it, is going to help you when you show up happier to work as an employee, or it's going to help you be a better leader as an entrepreneur, a better visionary, and things like that. And I think another challenge that many of us have, many of you have, I have, even though I teach this for a living, a lot of times it's hard to put your finger on it, is, again, it's never about one thing. And, as an umpire in professional baseball, so if you take the ones in the majors, which I wasn't in the majors, otherwise I still would be, I was in the minors. What I'm about to describe happens less every level down. So like it happens less to the major leaguers than it does the AAA umpires. It happens the AAA guys less than it does the AA guys, the single A guys, college on down. And I still, so tunnel vision is what I'm going to dive into now. Teach a quick lesson here. We're going to wrap it up. So I still teach NCAA umpire camps, high school as well. Even had some, and even some little league stuff. I don't really have time to do any of them anymore, but I was on, so Clint Fagan's his name. He was a major league umpire for a while, was on his training staff. We used to do stuff at Baseball USA in Houston and things like that. And tunnel vision, when you're working with people behind the plate and teaching them how to be exceptional behind the plate, tunnel vision is a big reason that you can go into slump as an umpire. If you've ever seen a situation where it was an obvious strike, I'm talking like right down the middle, watching a game on TV, and the umpire balls it, or it was an obvious ball and the umpire right hands it and strikes it, and you're sitting there going, how in the hell could that possibly happen? Well, the answer is tunnel vision. And it's a real thing, and it even happens to the players as well. But so what it is and what they teach you as an umpire is that you want to have a relentless focus on the release point of the pitcher, right? Now, this is sometimes easier said than done, just like a hitter, right? There are some pitchers where it's hard to pick up the release point and the hitter can't pick up the ball till it's halfway to home plate, right? Those pitchers are obviously, even if they don't throw as hard, obviously harder to hit than the people that you can pick up the release point from 60 feet, 60 inches away, like right when they release it. Those guys are going to be easier to have success against the ones you can't pick up the ball. Well, just like a hitter, as an umpire, it's the same way, right? If you're picking up the ball halfway to the plate, you're going to have less success of getting that pitch called right. So you have a relentless focus on the release point, and then you create a journey. You're spotting it with your eyes, right? You're not moving your body. You're not moving your head. You're moving your eyes. And you're literally trying to slow it down as much as you can, which is hard at 98 miles per hour with insane movement. I wish everybody understood how fast that comes from 60 feet, 6 inches. It is really, really fast. So you're kind of pinpointing, trying to slow down every peak of movement and following that all the way into the catcher's mitt. Well, sometimes what you run into is a situation called tunnel vision. And tunnel vision is you have such a relentless focus on the release point that you keep staring at it even as the ball travels and ends up in the mitt, right? So you never see it. And this is real because the higher levels you go, the more the pitches move. So this would hurt you in Little League, but it's going to kill you in the majors, right? Or any pro level for that matter. And sometimes in single and double A, where I called, right, those are the pitchers that are throwing 99 but have no idea where it's going. And the majors, like, they have control and everything. A lot of times you're getting a lot of high-level talent that hasn't harnessed it. And, they'll throw one over the backstop and then one at the guy's head and then paint one at the knees on the corner, right? Those are the ones you miss because the guy's all over the place. So you're tracking the journey and you're going from release point all the way to catcher's mitt. Well, there's a path to that. And I want all of you, whether it's, your relationship is struggling, whether you're not advancing your career and getting the promotions and making the money that you want to make, whether you be a business owner and sales are down, new patients are down, revenue is down, you're not taking any money home, whatever it may be. I want you to view that as the catcher's mitt. Right. And I want you to work backwards, meaning that there is a journey on why you are where you are. It is not about one thing. And as we blind spot in on this release point and we remain so focused on what we think is the problem that we can't take our eyes off it, when in reality, it's not the problem. It's all the other things that are involved with it. You have a conversion problem, right? There is a ton of things, like that's the end result of a bunch of stuff that is happening in front of it that is not going right? Your marketing, what happens, after, the new patient phone call, what happens after the call and before they arrive, how they're greeted, digital workflow, exam processes, presenting money. They say, let me think about it. Your pending treatment follow-up with every business out there in any industry that's a multi-million-dollar loss, right? Following up with prospects, organizing it properly, text, email, phone, video messaging, like that whole process. How often do you follow up? How long do you follow up? It's a leaky hole for everybody out there. Many can't feel it, so they're not looking to fix it. OBS, for orthodontists listening out there, you're so focused on the release point. You're so focused on the desire. You're so focused on the problem. You're so focused on your goal that you are completely ignoring the path and the journey into that catcher's mitt, all the things that it must take to achieve it, to achieve being a great umpire behind the plate, being able to break it down step by step in slow motion on how you're going to achieve it. So many of you fall into that trap as a blind spot, a weakness, a vulnerability. It is hindering your progress. That you can see where you want to go, but you absolutely cannot see the path to get there. You can see what you think is the problem, and you ignore all the things that are going to take to make sure that problem dissipates into something that eventually can become your greatest asset. And again, the same philosophies, what you're trying to achieve in your life, better relationship, right? Better relationship, more friends, better friends. A big blind spot for many of you out there is you hang out with the wrong people. And this is, employees. You're hanging out with, you're dating a scumbag that doesn't treat you right, doesn't help make you better. You're hanging out with people that are bringing you down. They're complainers, right? They blame everything else in life except for themselves. Docs, business owners, other business owners we have out there, you're hanging out with people that complain about things, all right? The price shoppers, all the industry changes and the corporations, all this stuff. Meanwhile, if you just took care of your blind spots, you could turn those into your greatest strength. The down economy, you could be turned into your greatest strengths. Price shoppers, more people opening up, more people doing Invisalign on your street. All these things could be used to your unique advantage, but you choose to hang out with people that complain about them, bring you down, right? It's a blind spot. Could go on and on and on about this topic. And if you get so focused on the problem, you are going to miss the path, the journey, all of these little things that you need to maneuver as that road to success is under construction, right? You need to go, and as society changes, the consumer changes, you need to go around these detours, right? As convenience becomes more important to people, then you have to implement the new patient consult, and you've got to do it really well, which I got a boot camp, by the way. We can put that description whenever we come out with a registration link. I'll put that in the description below so you can get registered for it. But a really cool virtual consult boot camp coming up to kind of teach you the A to Z process on how to convert at the highest levels. All of you got to understand that there's a path that has happened to whatever problem that you have ended up with. And as you think that way, it really will allow you to map out the journey of what needs to happen for all of you to be successful. You do not have to put more money into your marketing. You don't need to do it, guys. You need to identify all the spots, right? If you need more new patients, right? Part of that is making sure that your experiences are unexpected, right? Your team is trained on how to ask for more 5-star Google reviews in a way that's going to make it happen, right? Your referrals. If you need more new patients, what's the best kind of customer you can get? It's a referral from another one, right? Your conversion's going to be higher. You can charge a higher price usually. And your team's got to be trained how to ask for that in a very specific way. Your employees out there, guys, they don't know how to do this stuff. This is a big part of what Iconic was just about. was asking for 5-star. When's the last time you went to a restaurant and a waiter asked you for a video testimonial or a 5-star review? It never happens, right? Like, to me, it's asinine that restaurant owners can't see that they're losing their ass in that part of their business because their people aren't trained how to ask. Do you know how many 5-star reviews you could get a night by training your waiters how to properly ask at the right time, look for, specific signals the table is giving, right? You would blow your 5-star reviews up more than any marketing ever would, just by training your waiters. And this is the same thing inside. This is why our niche, same thing inside orthodontics, dentistry, beyond, right? But you don't think of these things. And those are your blind spots professionally. Like employees, we had so much of life and career talk at Iconic, but it's the same thing, right? If you can't pay your bills, right, then there are multiple reasons along the journey, from decision-making to, gravity problems, problems that most people have. But depending on the decision you make, the gravity problem can, turn your life into crap or make it successful, right? There are problems you got to be aware of. That's a podcast for itself, but we talked heavily about those at Iconic because I'm passionate about it. But there's this journey that has put us all where we are. And if we put our blinders on to these weaknesses that we have, these vulnerabilities that we can be susceptible to, it creates such a huge problem in our organizations, and sometimes a huge problem, again, we can't identify. Like that group orthodontic practice, right? It's staring them right in the face, and they refuse to see it. And another company, innovative enough, wanted to prove it to them, and we'll see what they say. But we could do a mystery package to all of you that aren't customers that listen. And I promise you, your receptionist is going to blow it. You're either not going to answer the call, right? I bet you that if we mystery called your practice 10 times, you missed 3 of them, right? And I know that because of the data that we have, like during regular business hours. And until you see something like that, it's hard to believe it. But this is the blind spots that all of you have. And I'm just using a phone front desk example today, but this, and I've referenced it throughout this podcast, this is for everything across the board. It could be you're chaotic, but you won't use remote monitoring. Boom, blind spot. You could be chaotic and you complain about it and you won't use remote monitoring because you say it's too expensive. Like, it's ridiculous. Listen to yourself. Like, those are a couple blind spots I just mentioned right there. Or you wait until this drives me nuts. And it happens so many. I know it drives the companies nuts. And it happens so much out there as well, is you'll just say, I don't need remote monitoring now. Well, that means this is the perfect time to do it. And if you use it right, you're going to get more new patients from it. If you promote it out on social media, have it on your website. If you know how your TC uses our exam processes, digital workflow processes, using remote monitoring as a sales tool to get people to buy from you in the first place, you're going to increase your conversion and at a higher price because, again, people say they value convenience almost more than any other type of experience there is. The data is hardcore, and it's not just for, Amazon. It's across the frickin' board. Right? So if you're not using it and you know you're chaotic, there's a blind spot. If you're not using it because you don't think you need it yet, why in the world would you wait? Like, this is so much why we're getting a bigger and bigger following of people that are new. Our school following, residencies, our listens are way up because what we teach is why the heck wouldn't you do this before you need to, right? Being reactive, that's a blind spot. And so many of us, as humans, like, we get fat, we try to lose weight. Our relationship goes to hell. We seek counseling. We lose money. We try to make money. We're such a reactive animal. It's just crazy, which is a blind spot in itself. So many of you out there are running, a reactive practice instead of a proactive business. And again, this is so the truth for restaurants, hotels, plumbers, lawyers, like the list goes on and on. So many entrepreneurs out there, you are running reactive businesses. And it's all because, well, it's too expensive. No, you're looking at it all wrong. Almost 90% of consumers say they would choose a business if they offered convenience, others wouldn't. Right? There's other studies that are in the 90s on I would remain with a business if they offered convenience, others would. But yet you're making people come in for OBS appointments. Like, what the hell is that? Right? You don't have the new patient virtual console installed. What the hell is that? Like, there are so many, and this is why, the success blueprint for the new economy is really what we're calling our program now, because every day there's new consumer data and we are all over it. And one of the reasons we're changing the name of the podcast, we got other announcements coming, is because we're 5 years ahead of it. And because of that, we're teaching you on how to be 5 years ahead of it. I mean, think 13 years ago when I founded this company, we were teaching a lot of this stuff. You want to talk about out of the box and you're crazy, back then, think about how crazy people probably thought we were. But as we teach a lot of the same stuff, but obviously it's developed, it's more forward thinking, it's changing, it's evolving based on the consumer data. Now you can't argue it. Like, the data says do this, do it, and do it really well. But a lot of you out there won't. From new patient virtual consult to virtual, going virtual with your OBS, to redefining pending treatment, to redefining the exam process, new patient call, your digital marketing, your culture, from making sure your leaders are always being trained. That's another, and I'm probably going to break this off into a series, meaning that as I see things, I can do a podcast about it. But a huge part of your blind spots out there are just your leadership skills or lack thereof, like this practice. Not being forward thinking enough to go, you know what, if we're going to do marketing, let's invest in making sure our people are trained to convert it, right? Major blind spot. And so many of you out there wasting your money with pay-per-click companies, wondering why you're not getting more business or more starts. Or maybe you are happy with your starts, and that's a blind spot in itself too, because I know based on what we do, wherever you are out there, if you're happy, we could go and double you and quadruple your happiness, right? Because you still have these leaky holes everywhere. You just may be fortunate enough to overcome it, right? And still make what you want to make and take home what you want to take home. But from a leadership standpoint, culture standpoint, digital marketing standpoint, how you train your people, just the list goes on and on professionally. And also, like I said, with the employees, rejecting feedback, not seeking coaching, right? Not wanting to face your fears. And wondering why, your dreams and aspirations, you always, you may be getting closer to it, but it always seems every time you take 3 steps forward, you take 2 steps back, or you take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And it's always like right there, and you can't get it because, you're not facing your fears. You're afraid of rejection. You're afraid of change. You're afraid of guilt. One of the things we talked about at Iconic, I see it with hourly employees all the time that sabotage their success because they're afraid to be more successful than their parents. And to some of you out there, that may sound crazy, but it is a real thing, especially demographically, ethnicity, things like that. It is a real culture thing that exists with a lot of people. And they may feel that not only guilty if they do better, they don't feel like they're worthy of it. And these are all reasons why I just love the life and career side of what we're developing this program into, because until the mindset of your team is right, it's really, really difficult to get ideas installed. It's really difficult to advance the business forward if the mindset of your team is not where it needs to be. And a lot of your teams just flat aren't. They have poor mindsets, and that's developed from parents and just things in life and decisions they've made. And these are leaky holes. These are blind spots, vulnerabilities, weaknesses that is hindering your employees' progress, just like you have blind spots that are hindering yours. One of the things that I want all of you to do out there as an exercise is I want you to write down what your struggles are. And what I mean by that is it could be sales, it could be new patients, it could be new customers, it could be high turnover, whatever it is. I want you to write down 3. So I'm talking to everybody out there, but I'm also talking to the docs, the business owners, the spouses that are coming to the event, because we're going to create a roundtable around this. So I want you to write down at least 3, it could be more, but at least 3 of your biggest headaches that exist right now. And then I want you to brainstorm all the things that you can think of that would impact that, right? Meaning, 1, positively, right? All the different things you could do to impact that positively. But first, before you do that, I want you to write down all the things that you could brainstorm that have caused that, right? And I want you to do some self-reflecting no matter how hard this is, right? And as you self-reflect, what you will find is that once you write down 1 or 2, you're going to be able to write down a lot more. You're going to write down more and more and more and more. as you self-reflect these situations. So the beginning of this exercise is write down 3 of your biggest headaches: high turnover, can't find good people to work, conversion, sales, revenue, profit, cash flow. And I want you to then write down the things, the journey that have caused that to be a problem. And I want it to all be self-reflected, right? I don't want you to put the economy, right? The economy, a bad one, that's a gravity problem. It happens to most people, right? And it's the decisions you're making that is going to get your business to grow during a down economy, right? So I don't want you to put a down economy. It has to be about you internally, right? It has to be about you internally. That's where this is going to get really hard, right? All the things that could affect it. Then the next thing, the third one I'm talking about right now, all the things that could affect it. If we change those things, how could we then turn that into a positive outcome, right? In addition to this, I want you to write down 3 blind spots that you have personally, okay? I also want you to do this exercise with your team. And team members, you're going to write down 3 blind spots that you have in your career, right? So let's say you want to make more money. You're frustrated you're not making more money. I want you to write down all the things that you could brainstorm that are why you're not making more money, but it has to be about you. All right. This is a tough one. Right. So this is really a kind of a 4 or 5 step exercise, if you will, based on the things that I just said. All right. Now I'll describe it down and below in the description below. But again, 1, write down at least 3 frustrations you have. Sales are down, high turnover, culture's suffering, whatever it is. 1, right? You're chaotic, whatever it is. That's 1. 2, right? I want you to write down a bunch of stuff, brainstorm all the things, right, that are the causes of that. But they have to relate back to you, right? You cannot say my conversion's down because my treatment coordinator sucks, right? My sales are down because my VP of sales sucks, right? If they suck, if you hired them, that's a perfect blind spot, okay? It's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You're the one that hired them, okay? So there could be a flaw in your hiring process, is an example, right? My new patients are down. You can't say your marketing sucks, right? Unless my marketing sucks because I am not producing enough good organic content to engage people online. That I'll take, right? But it also could be my new patients are down because I haven't seen enough value in making sure my team is trained on how to ask for referrals, right? If I had been doing that, my team has been highly trained in that over the course of the last 10 years, I would have had a lot more new patients, right? That's an example of my new patients is a frustration, right? It's because of me not seeing enough value in getting them trained on how to ask. If I would train them how to ask, we could increase our new patients through patient referrals, right? That's how this exercise is going to work, right? These are identifying your blind spots. And again, like I also said, I also want you to do this personally. This could be a relationship thing, right? Like I admitted, like sometimes I get frustrated at the people that love me most, even though they love me and they're my biggest fan, right? That is a thing that has caused issues in the past. Right? If I look in the mirror and I really work on making sure I don't react that way, right? Things are going to get better, right? This is a look in the mirror to identify your blind spots, your weaknesses, and your vulnerabilities. And this is not going to be easy. This is intentional to try to get you to be uncomfortable, intentional to make you look in the mirror, and it's intentional to help you transform your life, career, and business. I hope you loved everything today. Blind spots are real, everybody. We all have them. It's whether or not we choose to identify them. And that's how you're going to identify them through that exercise. When everybody to do that, it's going to create a great roundtable discussion at this year's mastermind. I'm going to see everybody there in Scottsdale, Arizona here next week, at the end of next week. Looking forward to it. I hope everybody does these exercises out there, and everybody listen to me. Advertising is not your problem. All right. The problem is you and your team. That's the problem. If you reshape those, reimagine those, reinvent things that have always been the same, think outside the box, do what we teach on here, you're going to crush it. Crush it, crush it. Thanks, everybody. And as always, please give us a thumbs up there on YouTube. Make some comments. Share this with friends, colleagues, family, or anybody looking to transform their life, career, and or business. Same with audio experience listeners. Write us a 5-star review. It'll mean a lot. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.